Good morning. Peace and blessings. It's your boy Jay Taylor, Voices for the Voiceless, and I'm back with another video. Yes, indeed, man. Hope everybody enjoying their Tuesday. Man, this situation is one of the situations that has been on the chopping block. And when I say the chopping block, I mean the discussion, open discussion for years now, for decades. And more importantly, in the last 6 or 7 years, since R. Kelly has been, going through trial and jail and all this other stuff, currently he's sitting in prison with 30 years as a first time offender in federal prison at that, which is essentially a life sentence, you know, and I don't see how anybody can say that this man, even if you think he's guilty of the allegations, that he deserves a life sentence in prison when ain't nobody deceased or anybody even hurt behind this situation physically, like with an altercation. We talking about allegations of basically what people are upset about would be considered in a state court um, statutory rape. You know what I'm saying? So off bat, and I think after the whole Diddy situation, played out, and we see like video evidence of this man actually assaulting uh Cassie. You know, Diddy go through his trial was a lot more salacious, and he only walking away with 1 or 2 years out the whole deal to do. But R. Kelly sitting over here with 30 years, and it wasn't even so. Majority of the public is looking at it like, well, shoot, free R. Kelly. You know what I mean? Like, man, I mean, just looking at the comparison in the cases, yeah, all right, he did enough time. You know what I'm saying? So, and as the title says, my thoughts on Rashana Landfair. She dropping a book, and it's still free R. Kelly after, you got the whole story with Rolling Stone and all that. So if it get a little loud, pardon the body, but I gotta get this load together. But yeah, man, you know what I'm saying? This is my thoughts right here. Rashana Landfair, if you don't know, is the young lady that was on the infamous tape from the first trial. First trial with Kells was acquitted in Chicago back in 2008. She was the one supposed to be on the P tape. Back in that trial, she testified before a grand jury that it was not her on the tape. Her parents testified before a grand jury that it was not her on the tape. The tape back then was declared to not be. Uh, it was declared to not be substantiated. They had experts say that the tape had indefinitely been tampered with. Let's say that. So, you still had other people, other family members that was saying that that was her on the tape. She was 14 years old. Now, in that situation, right, with the tape. Now, before we get off into that, first and foremost, I'm not mad at Rashana Landfield for wanting to write a book or tell her story, right? Every person has a right to tell their story. So I'm not finna sit here They criticized that lady for wanting to tell her story. You can't put a time frame on when somebody want to tell a story. None of that. If you say, you know, you want to come out here, but when you do tell your story, you have to know that people are going to question your story if certain things do not add up. And you're not 14 years old no more, you in your 40s. Okay? Now, like I said, in the first trial, it was substantiated that the tape couldn't be authenticated. They couldn't confirm if it was R. Kelly. They couldn't confirm if it was Rashana in the tape. They couldn't confirm none of that. So what happened? R. Kelly was acquitted of all charges of child pornography, and you know it was over with. He went back to doing what he do, making his music, and we didn't hear nothing else about Rashana Landfair at that time, back in 2008. Now, I remember when that tape came out, because that trial went from like 2002 to 2008. When that trial first came out, Rashana, if she was 14, if that was her, I saw the tape back in the day. She, to me, it couldn't have been a 14-year-old on that tape. The way that she was performing was a problem for me. Because it's like if you 14 and you got experience, and I was young myself at the time. I was probably in my early, I was grown, but I, I was older than 14 by a long shot when I saw the tape. I was not convinced that that was a a, a, a young kid on the tape. Now it was a smaller person, but I was not convinced that that was a 14-year-old on that tape. Um, just due to the performance. Now it was a smaller female, could you know, it was a young lady, but I'm thinking that was a grown woman that just had a smaller frame, right? And you know, with the tape, everybody and their mama was making jokes about this girl getting peed on. I mean, in society, it became like a parody. Dave Chappelle did a skit about it, the whole nine. And I understand that Rashana felt a way about that, even though she said she wasn't on no tape at that time. Her parents said she wasn't on the tape, right? Now, mind you, what we found out is that during this whole time, Sparkle is her auntie, which was an artist on R. Kelly's, roster. They had the song uh, "Be Careful" or something like that. You better be careful what you say to me. Somebody might say it to you, all that. So they had that record, you know what I'm saying? Now Sparkle and R. Kelly had a falling out over creative differences. She ended up moving around. They was enemies after a while. Now there was a dude by the name of Jim Derogatis that was, this white guy, this little short, stumpy, fat white dude that was a reporter that uh, had a falling out with R. Kelly because he wanted to be in R. Kelly band. R. Kelly turned him down. So we got to keep these two people in mind. That R. Kelly was being managed by another person by the name of Barry Hankerson, right? Barry Hankerson, a powerful player in the industry that got a lot of shady ways, used to date or was married to Gladys Knight. They've had a falling out around this time. Lisa Van Allen, another individual, shady individual that he was dating at the time that was stealing from him, and you know, uh, all type of conspiracy going on at the time. So you got all these different individuals. You got a Demetrius Smith, another shady individual that was like his manager when he first started out. They had a falling out, right? So the whole conspiracy happened. They said that the tape winded up in Tim Derrigatis' possession. Somebody mailed the tape to Jim Derrigatis out the blue. He worked at a newspaper at this time. He doing media at the newspaper, right? And then all of a sudden, he just gets a tape of R. Kelly and supposedly some, young female. And out of all the young black women in Chicago that he worked, I think he worked for the Chicago Sun-Times. He get this R. Kelly, sex tape in his possession, and they just send it to Jim Derrigatis out the blue. And out of all the young black women in Chicago, he just knew to call Sparkle, which is Rashana's niece, because he just knew this looked like her niece on the tape. He just knew to call Sparkle. He didn't call Rashana mother. He didn't call Rashana's father. Jim Derrigatis working at Chicago Sun-Times or some news station get a anonymous tape in the mail and call Sparkle the niece that fell out with R. Kelly over creative differences, because that was his artist. Now, as you following this story, it's not making sense already, right? Because why would you get a tape of you suspect to be an underage child? You just know out of everybody in Chicago, oh, this is Sparkle's niece. Let me call Sparkle. Sparkle. Then when Jim Derrigatis, who mad at R. Kelly because he couldn't play in his band, R. Kelly curved him, called Sparkle. Sparkle, you know what I'm saying, called Child and Family Services. She called man, hey, I ain't fooling with R. Kelly no more, but my niece over there, this the same niece now. Let's go back a little bit. Sparkle, when she started working with R. Kelly, she introduced her niece, and her sister and brother, which is, Rashonda's parents, to R. Kelly. She introduced her whole family to R. Kelly. Rashonda is saying when she was 12, 13, 14 years old, something like that, she told Rashonda to sit on R. Kelly's lap and ask R. Kelly to be her goddaddy. What kind of mess is that? So you told your 13, 14-year-old niece to sit on a grown man's lap and ask him to be her goddaddy at 12, 13 years old. Who meet their godparents? Normally, a godparent is there when you was born. You know what I'm saying? Like, they've been knowing you since you was born. How could you ask somebody at a teenager to be your godparent? That's crazy. But sit on his lap, rub his head, and they say, R. Kelly said, yeah, you could be my goddaughter. So that was weird, right? Now, Sparkle that had this following out. Now, she introduced all her family. Her brother-in-law, which is Rashana's father, started playing the guitar for R. Kelly. Right? Her brother-in-law started playing the guitar. So this is Rashana's father. Her brother was saying, now Rashana was in an R&B group called All for One or something like that, One for All, or some little R&B rap group / she used to rap, and they used to go overseas and perform. R. Kelly used to manage and produce their group in some fashion or whatever. And Rashana, as a teenager, used to go travel overseas and do shows. She had a group, right? So not only is she's R. Kelly daughter at this point. She's also his artist at this point. Sparkle is his artist, former artist. She move around. They falling out. Now this tape surfaced back in like 2001. It's all over the streets. Everybody got it, but it's supposed to be child pornography. Huh? You know, that's a major, you know, crime. Like to have possession or to disseminate child pornography is like a super duper crime, right? But it's all over Chicago. I remember, you know, how I saw the tape. I never went and bought the tape. Was my cousin, his girlfriend had the tape. Now, this is another thing on the societal level. Women love the tape. They love the tape. All the women was watching the tape because they like to see R. Kelly, you know, and see him get down in this situation, right? So tape all over the city, people going crazy about the tape. Like it ain't a 14-year-old child on the tape, allegedly, right? Now, when Sparkle contact the Child and Family Services, the Child and Family Services do an investigation. They don't find nothing. But it's just odd that Jim DeRogatis would contact Sparkle and not the parents. And that that Sparkle would contact Child and Family Services and not the parents. So at that point, the parents, the mother and the father of Rashana didn't want to have nothing to do with Sparkle. So they disassociated themselves with Sparkle. You know, the father doing work with R. Kelly. So Sparkle is out the picture. She had the falling out. The family, R. Kelly, they chose to roll with R. Kelly, Sparkle out the loop, right? All right, so we fast forward back up to the 2008 trial. R. Kelly acquitted, the whole nine. Boom. Everything done. Now, what we find out is, let's say that's 2008. We got to fast forward to like 2017. This is when the allegations started to resurface with R. Kelly, right? So they started resurfacing with allegations about, because R. Kelly at this time got all these girlfriends that's younger than him, living with him, the whole nine, right? So what we find out is R. Kelly wasn't getting his money, right? So after R. Kelly went to approach Sony about the money or whoever about his masters, that's when all these allegations resurfaced. That's when all these, documentaries and Surviving R. Kelly resurfaced now, because R. Kelly had been off the grid a little bit. He dropped his little music here and there. But when he inquired about his money, that's when all this, we see the play. Let's not act like we don't see. When R. Kelly asked about his money that was owed to him, his catalog worth of like $1 billion, a billion with a B, plus. Now all of a sudden, all this stuff is resurfacing, right? So when all this stuff start resurfacing, you got Surviving R. Kelly, you got, all the new accusers coming out, they parents doing press conferences, they got, this one, that one, but you didn't hear nothing about Rashana Lair. Actually, in 2000, fast forward after the Surviving R. Kelly stuff, we talking about Reshona. She dropping her book. Now, the first jurisdiction to press charges against R. Kelly again was Cook County. Cook County came out. They had the allegations of R. Kelly. Hold on, let me get this together. They had the allegations of R. Kelly, They had 4 accusers. And out of the 4 accusers, it was what? Jeronna Pace, I think it was Heather Williams. It was all these different accusers, and Rashana Lair was one of the accusers. Now, when the state charges came about, everybody looking like, wait a minute, how you gonna charge this man with Rashana Lair, and he already beat that case? You know what I'm saying? That's double jeopardy. That first thing we said, right? So like I said, Rashana can say what she want to say. Hey, that's her story to tell. My thing is, when we first saw that, it's like that's double jeopardy. Now this before the feds came, right? So they came out with the charges. The case was weak. Ken Fox soliciting victims. This woman, Ken Fox, the state's attorney in Cook County, went on national television and was talking about, if you know anything, pertaining to R. Kelly, we need you to come forward. Now, this prior to the charges, make no mistake, this prior to the charges that they came with. So he wasn't charged with anything when Ken Fox did this. The actual charges came later, right? So they solicited victims, they put out a phone number. That was a major constitutional violation. And then when they pop up with when they pop up with charges, they pop up with these 4 accusers, and one of them is Rashana Lair, and we like, wait a minute, he's been acquitted of that. So when the state charges resurfaced, cases were weak, and the next thing you know, the feds came out, right? The feds came out in New York, of all places. What no accusers from New York, but when the feds came, now they got all these people from the documentary. You got Faith Rogers, all these other people, right? Rashana wasn't in New York. She was in the Chicago case, right? So New York come out. This is where the racketeering and all this and all that came out, right? They would talk about Rico, and he the only. Now how you a criminal enterprise by your damn self? That was the whole thing with the case in New York with the criminal. We like, wait a minute, bro. How is you a criminal enterprise by your damn self? If you telling me R. Kelly responsible for all this shit by himself, right? R. Kelly responsible for flying and hiding people. He got to be on. When do he even got time to do all of this, bro? When do R. Kelly got time? Because you got to think about the allegations that was said, right? See, a lot of stuff coming back to me as I'm talking. They was talking about this man was putting women in chains and locking them in basements. They defecating and talk about they defecating in buckets, and they doing all this, and this man got to go on tour. When he got time to like sit back and lock anybody down, when he got to go, he got to be on the road to like go do his show. This how he eat. It's about going state to state. So who is watching these people and keeping them, locked up and all that where they can't get out? I mean, the allegations was so ridiculous, bro. They was talking like this man. They was talking like this man had the time to really, keep people in captive. Like he didn't have to go tour the whole world. You know what I'm saying? So he could pay his bills. And I'm like, what? They were saying the man had women locked in basements, and he didn't even have a basement. Like the allegations, that when I seen Surviving R. Kelly and I saw all the allegations, I knew all that. Just by me, doing what I do and being around the industry is, like I knew that was some BS off top. I'm like, that man ain't got no time to do all of this. Where is the time to do this? Right? Hey, God pardon the body, I'm at work, so. But yeah, so when they came with the New York trial, that was some BS. But we gonna keep it pushing because this is about Rashana, right? So now after New York came, now the state that was federal. Now the state of Illinois come with their charges, right? The state of Illinois come with their charges. When the state of Illinois, this is federal, and now uh, uh, he got Cook County, which is state charges. He got Illinois, which is fed charges, and he got New York, which is fed charges. So he got two federal cases, one state, right? And in the federal case, that involves Rashonda again with other accusers, some of which were in the New York trial. I'm like, what? Like, how many trials they gonna hit this man with? Now, the main issue with this trial in Illinois is obstruction of justice. So basically, what they were saying as it pertained to Rashana Landfair in the Illinois federal case is that the reason why she said it wasn't her on the tape in 2008 is predicated on the fact that R. Kelly, along with his manager at the time, what was the name of the guy? Daryl McDavid and June Brown. Now, he had co-defendants in this case, is predicated on the fact that they obstructed justice and paid and coerced and threatened and all these other elements to Rashonda and her family, so she would say that it wasn't her on the tape. So he basically obstructed justice. This is the only way they can avoid it being classified as double jeopardy. They had to add a different element so it wouldn't be double jeopardy, and they had to elevate it to a federal level from a state level as it pertained to Rashana Landfair. So they had to get a little bit more creative, right? So they got Daryl McDavid and they got June Brown. Daryl McDavid and June Brown, they saying that was his, basically like his employees that helped him obstruct justice. You know what I mean? They helped him obstruct justice, and they threatened, coerced, intimidated, all these other different elements. You feel me? My bad, I'm at work, man. These people all in the way. But yeah, so that was the whole spiel with that. You know what I'm saying? So they had to prove in court that this what they did. Like the whole tape, right? With this was the deal. They said that R. Kelly had the girl on tape, and Lisa Van Allen, the one she said she did a threesome with her and R. Kelly, right? See, I'm just going over this, like trying to revamp my memory on the whole situation. Lisa Van Allen, another person that was on, Surviving R. Kelly, was supposed to have stole the tape from his gym bag or whatever, and was extorting R. Kelly to get the tape back, right? And Daryl McDavid and June Brown was supposed to be like his henchmen that went out there and was trying to retrieve the tape, because they knew that Rashana Landfill was on it, and that would destroy R. Kelly. And, we got to get this tape back. So R. Kelly was out here paying people to get the tape back, threatening, allegedly supposed to have been threatening Lisa Van Allen because it had her and the threesome with R. Kelly on the tape and all this other stuff on this tape that, oh, we got to get the tape back. So it end up in all these different people possession, and Jim Derogatis running around doing interviews about the situation. Yeah, I got the tape. It's like, why would you contact the niece and not contact Jim Derogatis? Why would you, when you got the tape and it's child pornography, you are now responsible. Why didn't you notify the proper authorities when you got the tape? All these people with this so-called child pornography, right? So, all right, we ain't gonna do that. But like I said, Rashana Lair got every right to write her book, tell her story, but it's more to the story than just her perception of the story, right? Because see, when they came with these charges of obstructing the justice in Chicago, in the federal case, they dropped the state case. They dropped the original case that they charged him in Cook County because it was weak. They got rid of it. We got him on the feds, right? So they dropped that case. Kim Fox, Joe, she knew she ain't really have a case with that, so they had to drop it because they had issues with the statute of limitations on the state level. They had issues of double jeopardy with Reshona, and that was who the case was really about, right? So legally, we got to look at this from a legal perspective. When Kels went to trial over obstruction of justice, now all the other charges he got, hit with, but when he went to trial in the state of Illinois with obstruction of justice, this after losing the trial in New York for RICO, as it pertained to Kels, like trying to, obstruct justice when it pertained to Rashana Landfair, but Daryl McDavid and June Brown, his two co-defendants, were found innocent. They were found innocent of obstruction of justice. So, by definition, if they did not obstruct justice to get the tape back, then essentially, what do you have? Double jeopardy, because that's the only thing that's really, separating you from being acquitted the first time is the obstruction of it. But if they saying that, okay, because this is what was said, Darren McDavid was saying that they didn't have no knowledge of any minor on the tape, that they were trying to retrieve the tape from different individuals at this time, but they said it wasn't a tape of him and Rashana that they were trying to retrieve to their knowledge, and the people that they were trying to get the tape from knowledge. They trying to buy back this tape, not because Rashana Landfair is on there. They trying to get the tape back because it had R. Kelly and his wife on the tape, right? Now, that I'm just saying, they didn't know nothing about no minor Rashana Landfair on the tape. They testified like, hey, you could go back and look at it. We were trying to get the tape back because R. Kelly didn't want his wife on the tape. Now, you go back and look at the tape, R. Kelly's wife, Drea, ex-wife, his wife at the time, very petite lady. And you got all these shady characters around like Lisa Van Allen, Jim Derogatis, Barry Hankerson, that constructed some type of, extortion plot against R. Kelly because they were all enemies of him for one point or another. And did they use this girl as bait? Because they knew that they could extort them, right? Or try potentially extort them. So maybe, we already knew from 2008 that the experts said that the tape definitely was tampered with. Could it be that they tried to Frankenstein Rashana face on Drea body in this tape? Because to Daryl McDavid and June Brown, they was trying to get a tape back that had R. Kelly wife on there. His wife was of age. She's an adult, you know. So, a tape got stolen out R. Kelly bag that had him and his wife on it. Of course, R. Kelly don't want his wife, the mother of his children, you know what I'm saying, out there like that. That would make sense. But obviously, the judge and the jury felt like they were right. The evidence supported the fact that they did not obstruct justice by trying to get no tape back from no minor. At the end of the day, that's all that matters. So R. Kelly, June Brown, and Daryl McDavid were found innocent of obstruction of justice, which was the biggest case in Chicago. A lot of people don't talk about that enough. But we talk about Rashana Lair. She said it was on the tape now. She changed the story. It's certain things that came out in the trial that we didn't know about Rashana and her family. Now, during the trial, rest in peace, Rashana's father passed away. And it seemed like as soon as Rashana's father passed away, it seemed like the story changed. Like her position changed, right? It seemed like she went from supporting R. Kelly because, see, it came out that Rashana was still in contact with R. Kelly up until 2019. They did say that R. Kelly and Rashana was in a, intimate relationship with each other. Now, R. Kelly was saying that it wasn't until she was of age that they were intimately, Rashana saying now differently. But R. Kelly saying, well, when we started dealing with each other, we was of age. It came out in trial that not only was R. Kelly dealing with her when she was of age, allegedly, that his wife, Drea, was sleeping with Rashana when she was of age as well. So Rashana came to live with R. Kelly when she was, 17, 18 years old. And her living with R. Kelly was also living with Drea Kelly. And they both was having a relationship with Rashana according to the court documents. So I'm trying to understand something. If she wasn't of age, who's to say? Why wouldn't Drea be a co-defendant if she was sleeping with a minor too? I mean, these are this is things that we trying to understand as it pertains to this case, because she's saying that, that's her on the tape now, right? Now, like I said, her father came out the blue. I mean, her father ended up, passing away out the blue, rest in peace. But he was still working for R. Kelly during all this time when all this abuse was supposed to be going on when she was a minor. How is your father working for this man? And you saying that you sleeping in closets and all this other stuff, but your father in the studio playing the guitar with this man. Why would you be sleeping if your father is around? Why would you be sleeping in a dang on, closet on the chiropractor's chair and all this as a kid? Shouldn't you be at home getting ready for school if you were still in middle school at this time? Like, we all over the place, but these is just questions that's coming to my mind as I'm recalling a lot of this stuff that's going on, right? So also, when the feds first said that R. Kelly was like he paid Rashana off to say that it wasn't her on the tape back in 2008. So he obstructed justice, which we find out later that he was acquitted of obstruction of justice. A lot of people don't talk about that. But another thing is, they saying that he sent Rashana and her family on a trip during the trial to obstruct justice. But that don't make sense because they was only on the trip for 2 weeks and the trial lasted 6 years. So how you, if you wanted her to come testify, she was only on the trip for 2 weeks out of town. So how is that obstruction of justice? She wasn't gone for 6 years, right? But when they first came out with the allegations that R. Kelly had obstructed justice, this when her father was still alive, their family attorney came out and said that's not true. We, were never paid off. We were never sent anywhere. That's not my daughter on the tape. That's not me on the tape. So in 2019, they still was rocking with R. Kelly. Court documents show that they still used to go to R. Kelly house on special holidays. Well, surviving R. Kelly dropped, Rashana Landfair was texting R. Kelly like, what you want me to tell him? What you want me to do? And he kept curving her. Like, what victim is basically, stalking their predator? R. Kelly, like, not answering. She steady, like, you need to talk to me. You need to let me know something, or I'm gonna make a decision. That, like, what somebody that's scared of somebody that. Then it came out that R. Kelly was paying for her. He paid for her college degree. He paid her tuition. He was paying her rent. He bought her a truck. Like, all the way up until 2019, they were still cool. And then, like I said, with Greg Landfair, her father died. It seemed like the narrative changed, and the feds probably told her, "Look, if you rock with me, if you rock with R. Kelly, we're gonna lock your mama in the mud." You know what I'm saying? If you rock with Kels on this again, you going to jail. We know how the feds play. Come on now, we're not slow. So she switched to protecting that. Also, in 2019, like all this time, I think around 2021, that's when the flip of 2020, she was putting money on R. Kelly books. Yes, Rashana Landfair was putting money on his books. She was still rocking with him. This years later, bro. I mean, you can't make this stuff up, man. So, when you write this book, you drop this book, it's questions that people gonna have, right? It's two sides to a story, right? You gotta write your book. You gotta write to tell your story, but there's more to the story than just your story, right? You know what I'm saying? And so when R. Kelly come out, and he won that obstruction of justice case, to me, everything with Rashana Landfair should have been null and void. It shouldn't have been no more, but they still convicted him on the tape and all this other stuff. They went around some stuff. We word some things and all that. So he still got convicted in Illinois, and they just basically, whatever New York doing, we're gonna ride with that on the central side. So he got convicted and sentenced to 21 years in Illinois, right? Rashana Landfair flipped on him. You know what I'm saying? After he done you know, took care of her basically her whole adult life. You know, Rhea was sleeping with her allegedly too, and she just walk away scot free. My thing is this: R. Kelly getting some motion right now. It seems like every time R. Kelly gets some motion, they come with something else. You know what I'm saying? His daughter talk about he did something to him and did something to her, and now Rashana writing a book. See, R. Kelly got Teddy Riley talking about they finna do some music together, probably drop an album. R. Kelly got like 500K signatures on him getting a pardon from Donald Trump, possibly. If Trump will look at it, and you got all this. You got a little bit of motion going for R. Kelly. Like I said earlier, you got P. Diddy situation. P. Diddy situation is like, damn, why Kel's doing all that time? P. Diddy situation like why Kel's doing all that time, and P. Diddy only got a couple years. You got all these people like, man, let that man out. He been in there 7 years, and then he get a little motion again, and here they come with some more propaganda, if you ask me. Which I encourage all Kel supporters. I'm happy to see that we ain't out here, going crazy about the situation. Because we gotta, we don't need another revamp of people talking about, oh, his supporters is harassing a witness, and all these people that's against R. Kelly formulating these narratives. Then they quick to do that, try to make it look bad. But my thing is this: if R. Kelly don't get a pardon, if he guilty of anything, okay. I ain't never saying R. Kelly 100% innocent. I ain't saying he 100% guilty. What I'm saying is the injustice of it. That man should not be in jail doing no 30 years. If he don't get a pardon, he should be good for some type of relief. He should be good for some type of relief, dog. You know what I'm saying? Because it's too much inconsistencies in this situation, bro. Way too much inconsistencies. But it's just my first little take on it. Oh, before I forget, during the trial in New York, in Illinois, remember Boss Baby? It came out in court that the prosecutor, Angel Cruz, don't be cruel. Don't be cruel. Angel Cruz, the prosecutor, was reaching out after hours to Rashana Landfair. Called up Boss Baby. If that ain't intimidating a witness, and then they formulated a friendship, she formulated a friendship as a prosecutor off the record with Rashana Landfair. And then all of a sudden, when that guy found out, Angel Cruz ended up getting sent somewhere else to another district. All this corruption that went around with this case, don't forget I hope in the book that you write about Rashana Landfair, I love the fact that you want to get your story out there, but make sure you put Angel Cruz in there too. Angel Cruz was a big part of this. Did she try to convince you to, did she coerce you, intimidate you, persuade you? Did she pay you? And then you got what? When you did this, you were supposed to get $20 million in restitution. The judge said, hey, this man, I'm not finna grant you that. I'm not finna grant you no restitution. Because you was dealing with this man up until a couple years ago, right? And he paid for you to go to college. He was paying your rent. You know, so there go your restitution right there. Man took care of you your whole life. So you didn't get that, but what they did give you is a lifetime supply of Section 8. Rashana Lair, make sure you write it in the book. Keep it real. They gave you Section 8 for your testimony. I ain't never heard of the government giving somebody Section 8 for their testimony. They ain't even give you they should have bought you a house paid for. Why would they give you Section 8 for your testimony? I'd have been like, man, y'all crack, man, y'all don't buy me a house somewhere where the weather good. I'm helping y'all bring down the king of R&B. But respectfully, you got a right to voice your, people take this video and really dissect it and go back on what happened with this case, man. It's a lot that happened. Boss baby. Hey, man, this your boy Jay Taylor. Voices for the voiceless. We love y'all. Till next time, we should see you soon. Peace and blessings.